The asphalt still reverberated with the scars of World War II when, in 1952, an unlikely car emerged from the political shadows of Franco's Spain. The Pegaso Z102 Cupola was an anomaly, born under the iron fist of a dictatorship built by a state-owned company that had previously manufactured trucks and buses, and designed not for the people, but for the delusions of grandeur of a regime that wanted to prove its technical relevance to the world. The company was called ENASA, Empresa Nacional de Autocamiones S.A., and its creation was an affront to logic. At the center of this bold venture was Wilfredo Ricard, former chief engineer at Alfa Romeo, who left Milan to lead the revival of Spanish automotive engineering. Ricard didn't just want to create a fast car. He wanted to build a statement of technological supremacy. The Z102 Cupola was that statement, and the cry it emitted was strange, sharp, and defiant. Visually, the cupola looked like a space capsule. Its name wasn't just stylization. Cupola means dome in Spanish, a direct reference to the huge curved glass bubble that covered the rear of the car. The bodywork, sculpted with exaggeration and intent, featured futuristic curves that defied the classic proportions of the time. Mounted on a Z102B chassis, its structure was lightweight but incredibly rigid, a platform designed to tame the power of the engine it concealed. Under the hood rested a 2.8-liter V8 engine, capable of generating 170 horsepower at 6,300 RPM. Numbers that seem modest today, but in that decade placed it among the fastest vehicles on the planet. Its top speed was approximately 140 miles per hour, surpassing even some Ferrari and Aston Martin models. The cupola debuted at the 1952 Paris Motor Show, and the following year crossed the Atlantic to shine under the artificial lights of Madison Square Garden during the World Motorsports Show. There, surrounded by skeptical glances and camera flashes, the car provoked mixed reactions: admiration, doubt, discomfort. It was beautiful but strange, futuristic but misunderstood. Its trajectory became even more bizarre when it was acquired by Rafael Trujillo, the dictator of the Dominican Republic. Under his rule, the car earned the nickname El Dominicano, and like its name, its history followed an erratic path. After Trujillo's assassination in 1961, the cupola passed through uncertain hands, was modified, mutilated, converted into a spider, and had its iconic dome removed. Decades later, restored to its original form, it re-emerged as a polished ghost. Today, it rests under the cold lights of the Lumen Museum in the Netherlands, silent, untouched, watching visitors with glass eyes. The Pegaso Z102 Cupola is more than a piece of engineering. It is an echo of an isolated country's delirium, a symbol of technical vanity and political ambition. In a world saturated by predictable lines and industrial figures, the cupola remains a reminder that madness sometimes drives us further than reason. And if you also believe that every car has a hidden story, enjoy this video, subscribe to the channel, and consider supporting our work. Because some machines weren't made to drive. They were made to defy time. In 1977, while the global automotive industry was searching for solutions to the oil crisis and betting on conservative designs, a small British manufacturer decided to go in the opposite direction. Panther Westwinds, known for its exotic and unfashionable models, presented the world with something that looked like it had come straight out of a glamorous dystopia: the Panther VI. A car with 6 wheels, more than 8 liters of displacement, 2 turbochargers, and a list of accessories that looked more like a luxury yacht catalog. Inspired by the Tyrrell P34 Formula One car with 4 front wheels, and 2 rear wheels. The Panther VI was an exercise in absolute excess. The 4 front wheels were not just an aesthetic extravagance. They were designed to improve grip, cornering stability, and braking by distributing contact with the ground in a way never before seen on a road vehicle. The hand-formed aluminum body rested on a tubular steel chassis. At over 16 feet long, nearly 7 feet wide, and just 4 feet high, its presence was impossible to ignore. A low, wide monster, replete with chrome details. The engine was an 8.2-liter Cadillac 5.8, mounted in the rear and twin turbocharged to generate around 600 horsepower. It was fed by an electronic fuel injection system and linked to a 3-speed automatic transmission. Estimates at the time suggested that the Panther VI could exceed 200 miles per hour, although no independent tests have confirmed this figure. With rear-wheel drive and huge rear wheels, the car promised explosive performance in a straight line, although its cornering ability remained unknown. Inside, the Panther west winds abandoned any notion of restraint. Power leather seats, digital air conditioning, an advanced sound system, a telephone built into the armrests, and even a television were installed in the dashboard. The roof was removable with 2 options, a fiberglass hardtop and a fabric convertible top. It was a car designed for eccentric millionaires, and that's what it attracted, albeit in negligible numbers. Only 2 were ever produced. The first, with right-hand drive and a one-piece front seat, was unveiled at the London Motor Show. Its gear selector was located on the steering column. It was later sold to a Saudi collector. The second, with a left-hand drive and individual seats, was delayed due to financial difficulties at the brand and was only completed in 1985. Sold for £150,000, it became a relic of a dream that had already imploded. The Panther VI never went into production. The world wasn't ready for it. Perhaps it never will be. Its proposal was too big, too expensive, too strange. But its existence is a reminder that automotive design sometimes needs to go beyond the limits of what is acceptable to find the extraordinary. If you also believe this, like the video, subscribe to the channel and consider supporting our work, because there are cars that were not born to sell. They were born to challenge. The year was 1970. In a United Kingdom still divided between industrial tradition and the psychedelic wave of the late 1960s, small manufacturer Marcos Engineering made a bold decision. Known until then for producing lightweight, 2-seater cars aimed at enthusiasts, the brand decided to step out of its comfort zone. The Mantis M70 was born. A 4-seat sports coupe with an aggressive silhouette, a Triumph engine, and ambitions greater than its financial structure could ever support. The car was designed in an incredibly short period of time. The project began in July 1969, and the first prototype was ready in September of the following year. The rush was evident, but also understandable. The Gran Turismo market was booming, and Marcos wanted to get in on the action with something radical. The Mantis M70 was low, wide, and long, about 15.5 feet long, and only 3 feet 9 inches high. Its design was a fiberglass manifesto, a shell molded over a square tubular chassis. The engine came from the Triumph TR6, a 2.5-liter inline 6-cylinder, mounted longitudinally at the front. It produced approximately 150 horsepower, sent to the rear wheels via a 4-speed manual transmission. The extremely lightweight body weighed about 250 pounds and helped the car deliver decent performance, even without big numbers. The front suspension used double wishbones and coil springs, while the rear had a rigid axle and trailing arms with coil springs and shock absorbers. It was a hybrid system that revealed the limitations of the design. Inside, the Mantis was surprising. Despite its aggressive exterior, the interior was surprisingly spacious. The promise of 4 adult seats was real, a rarity in British sports cars of the time. The trunk, with about 10 cubic feet of capacity, reinforced the idea of a practical sports car. But none of that mattered. The price, set at £2,550, put the Mantis on a direct collision course with icons such as the Jaguar E-Type, a battle Marcos could not win. The brand suffered from limited infrastructure, financial problems, and a fragile distribution network, especially in the United States, where new safety regulations made homologation almost impossible. In 1972, just 2 years after its launch, the company went into liquidation. Only 32 examples of the Mantis M70 were ever produced. Today, the Mantis M70 is a ghost of Marcos's dreams, a car that tried to combine space, style, and performance, but succumbed to the weight of reality. A tapered body with hidden headlights and the soul of a survivor. It wasn't just forgotten. It was ignored in its own time. If you also believe that there is beauty in grand failures, enjoy the video, subscribe to the channel, and consider supporting our work. Because cars like the Mantis M70 exist to remind us that not every bad idea is a bad idea. In a quiet corner of the 1967 Turin Motor Show, amid the roar of Italian 512 engines and sensually styled GTs, a motionless object caused a stir. It was low, thin, with 2 parallel bodies joined by a central cabin. Nothing about it looked like a car. It looked like an artifact. Perhaps a land missile. Perhaps an experiment that had escaped from a secret laboratory. It was the OSI Silver Fox. And no one there knew quite what they were looking at. OSI, Officine Stampaggi Industriali, was an Italian car body manufacturer that existed for only 8 years. It was an ambitious project, born from the restless mind of Luigi Segre, formerly of Ghia, who wanted to transform Italian engineering into functional art. In its final years, already mired in financial crisis, the company decided to try something desperate, a lightweight, aerodynamic, insane racing prototype. The Silver Fox was that attempt, an experimental car built for homologation in the B6 category, which sought balance, speed, and stability, with concepts closer to aeronautics than the automotive industry. The design was a bisiluro, 2 side pods that housed different components. On the left side, just behind the central cockpit, was the engine, a small, angled, 1-liter Renault Alpine 4-cylinder. On the right side were the fuel tank and transmission system. The total weight of the vehicle was only 1,300 pounds. The focus was on drag coefficient, not power. The engine produced about 80 horsepower, but that was irrelevant. The Silver Fox was not made to race in a straight line. It was made to cut through the wind like a knife. The real secret was in the active aerodynamics. The car had 3 functional wings, a front wing, manually adjustable, a center wing, movable in real time, controlled by the driver, and a rear wing, fixed with integrated aerodynamic braking systems. It was an extremely advanced concept of downforce and airflow control for the 1960s. If it had raced, it would have been a revolution. But it never raced. OSI collapsed financially shortly after the prototype was unveiled. No track testing, no drivers, no sponsorship. The Silver Fox disappeared as quietly as it had appeared. It spent years locked away in private collections until it reappeared at events such as Retromobile in Paris in 1997 and the Goodwood Festival in 2013. Today, it belongs to Frenchman Paul-Émile Bessat, a former driver who understood the value of that artifact, not as a car, but as a symbol. The Silver Fox is what happens when engineering dreams too big in a world where the ground is always closer than the sky. If you also believe that failure can be beautiful, enjoy this video, subscribe to the channel, and consider supporting our work. Because there are cars that didn't win, but inspired. In 2008, the world was sinking into recession. While automakers struggled for relevance and stability, a Swiss company decided to submerge, literally. Amidst global economic seriousness, Rinspeed unveiled something that looked like a bad joke or an exaggerated publicity stunt. But it was real. An amphibious car, a fully electric convertible, and above all, a vehicle that could sink. Its name, sQuba, with a Q as a nod to disruption. A car that submerged like a submarine and took its occupants with it. Frank M. Rinderknecht, the creator of Rinspeed, made no secret of his inspiration. He grew up fascinated by James Bond and his submarine Lotus Esprit in The Spy Who Loved Me. But where cinema stopped at fiction, he decided to move forward with engineering. 3 decades after that film, he gave the world something that surpassed the imagination. The first functional, submersible car on the planet. The sQuba didn't float, it sank up to 33 feet deep, and in doing so, it completely flooded the cabin because there was no roof, no windows, no sealed doors. The driver and passenger, upon entering the sQuba, knew what awaited them. A complete dive. Masks, oxygen tanks, and psychological preparation. The explanation? Safety. A closed vehicle that failed underwater would become a trap. An open car, bizarre as it may seem, offers instant escape. But what seemed like madness was, in fact, logical reasoning, distorted but coherent. The sQuba was built on the platform of a Lotus Elise with a carbon fiber and stainless steel body. It weighed approximately 2,800 pounds. On land, it used a rear-wheel drive electric motor with about 120 horsepower. The maximum speed on land was 62 miles per hour. Upon touching the water, the car initially floated. Then, front electric motors, coupled with propellers and vertical jets, took over. On the water's surface, it cruised at 3 miles per hour. Submerged, its speed dropped to 1/8 of a mile per hour. It was more of a ceremonial displacement than a sprint, as if the car itself demanded respect for the depths. The interior was saltwater resistant, with technical polymer seats and sealed electronics. Underwater navigation controls were operated by waterproof buttons and a hermetic panel. The adjustable ballast system allowed for precise sinking and rising. All this in a car that looked like a futuristic roadster, a car that would never be sold, because the sQuba was never intended as a product, but rather as a provocation. Rinspeed invested over $1 million in the project. There was no mass production. There was no target market. There was only one idea to prove that the impossible can be driven. Today, the sQuba rests as an experimental relic, an artifact between absurdity and genius, a reminder that sometimes engineering must dream, even when everything around it demands silence. If you also believe that certain machines are statements, enjoy this video, subscribe to the channel, and consider supporting our work. Because some ideas don't need to work, they just need to exist. 5 cars, 5 mechanical aberrations that challenge their era, their creators, and the very definition of the automobile. They weren't just machines, they were statements. Each one emerged as a rejection of conformity, a cry for freedom in the midst of a market that insisted on labeling, limiting, and domesticating what should be wild. The Pegaso Z102 Cupola, born under the cloak of an authoritarian regime, dared to wear curved glass and challenge giants with a Spanish Delirium 8. The Panther VI, with its 6 wheels and truck engine, showed that excess can be a language of resistance. The Marcos Mantis M70 attempted to combine aesthetic radicalism with everyday practicality, failing in an almost poetic way. The OSI Silver Fox didn't race, didn't win, wasn't even tested, and yet it forces us to rethink what performance means. And the Rinspeed sQuba, well, the sQuba decided to sink because for it the ground was just the beginning. These cars were not forgotten because they were unimportant. They were forgotten because they were too big to fit into their times. They were rejected not because they failed technically, but because they challenged culturally. There was no place for them in dealerships. There were no technical specifications to explain what they did. They were out of place. And that is precisely why they still fascinate us. We live in a world where cars are becoming increasingly similar. Predictable shapes, generic functions, recycled promises. In this sterile landscape, the 5 vehicles we explore here merge as echoes of an era when dreaming big was not only allowed, it was necessary. They remind us that for every straight line of success, there are curves of risk, shadows of failure, and silhouettes that will never be fully understood. These cars speak to those who have never been satisfied with the obvious, to those who look at an empty road and see possibility, not routine, to those who understand that the true engine of a car lies in the courage of its creator, not just in the numbers it delivers. If you've made it this far, maybe you also feel that strange pulsation in your chest. Maybe you also see cars not just as vehicles, but as symbols. If so, enjoy this video, subscribe to the channel, and consider supporting our work. Because in this space, speed is secondary. What drives us is delirium. The delirium of believing that machines can have souls,